Okay, this time I want to talk about water again. The on the one hand, I don't want to feel like I'm beating a dead horse, but on the other, it really is one of the more pressing issues facing California of mandatory water restrictions, and there is just still so much misinformation floating around about this. It's frustrating to hear. So first, there is this mythology, mythology, that's a lie. This lie that farmers use 80% of the water in California. That has been demonstrated to be untrue time and time again. The farmers in California only use 40% of the water. This lie was started because they do bookkeeping with water much the same way they do bookkeeping with money. The releases from the dams for what they call environmental reasons is how this all was started. Those environmental water releases account for 50% of the water. And they don't even, they pretend that water doesn't even exist when they do the bookkeeping. And that's how 40% becomes 80%. So they release all this water, and another dirty secret behind this is why they are releasing that water. For 20 years, they've been saying the agricultural pumps are killing the smelt that live in the delta. It turns out those pumps kill very few of the fish. It's like 8th or ninth on the list as far as numbers of fish killed. The primary cause of these fish dying off are the communities, the cities on the delta itself. They have been dumping undertreated sewage into the delta. They have not increased the capacity of their sewage treatment plants to keep up with population growth. So they still run all that water, all that sewage through their plants, but because they must do so more rapidly than the plants allow, it's undertreated sewage. That is what's killing the fish. Now, they've been releasing all this valuable water to cover up that problem, and in the end, it didn't work. The fish died anyway. So they wasted all that water to mask a problem. They did not actually do anything to solve the problem. The state did not insist that these cities on the delta increase the capacity of their sewage treatment plants. That is just wrong. It's unjust. It's unfair. It wastes a lot of water. And what's more, it's the left side of the political argument that is doing this. The ones that claim to be environmental stewards. That is just fundamentally wrong. It's hypocritical of them. But see, that's the problem. San Francisco, very left-leaning city. It really does corrupt the politics of this entire state. It's a big city, but it's not as big as LA. It's not as big as the rest of the population of the state, but it's like Chicago West. It's where the political machine is centered in California. All of the statewide officials, most of them, are from San Francisco. The Attorney General, the Lieutenant Governor, the Governor, these people all rise to the top of California politics because they are from the city where the political machine is. This water thing, they go after water from the rest of the state, and yet they are responsible for the very policies that there's a shortage. We've tried to build more dams in the state to keep up with population. We've tried to build more hydroelectric plants so that we have affordable electricity again. The left will not allow that. Hydroelectric plants are an inexpensive way to generate electricity. Instead, they're pushing this mind-bogglingly expensive way on us, all the solar stuff, individuals on their houses or grid level projects that are going on around the state. None of these are surviving without subsidies. It's insanely expensive. Will they do the tried and true? Hydroelectric? It's inexpensive, it's affordable, it'll allow industry to thrive here? No. They're chasing industry out of this state. And a lot of it is, a lot of the root of industry leaving the state is because of expensive electricity. 33 cents a kilowatt hour. And yet they will not allow us to build more hydroelectric plants. We have a shortage of water. They let it out to sea. They don't even save what we have. We have a huge mountain range here that's full of snow that we can store water for the lean years. In fact, we used to do that. The left will not allow that. The left is the cause of this problem. And I get so upset at, this idea that farmers use 80% of the water. That's been repeated by the New York Times when it's been demonstrated to be false. It's been repeated by the local news stations when it's been demonstrated to be false. They know it's false, and they're still repeating this lie. I've even written to these local news stations, their news directors, that they shouldn't be repeating a lie. They're in the media. They're supposed to be interested in the truth, not pushing an agenda when it's based on lies. And this water shortage, at the least, would have been greatly alleviated if they just stored the water that was here instead of letting it run out to the ocean. People need that water for their livelihoods. They need it to drink, and just the idea of just being so incredibly wasteful with it. And then you hear people talk about, well, California, no one should be there. But people are here. People have been thriving here, and it was sustainable before all these leftist policies were put in place. It's the leftist policies that are the problem, not the fact that people are in California. People are here earning a living in agriculture and technology and everything else. It's sustainable if you build the infrastructure. The problem is the left will not allow the infrastructure to be built. Back to the electric rates. Governor Brown has actually tried to lure companies back to California by offering temporary breaks on electric rates. Now, that's an admission right off the bat that electric rates are too high, that a company cannot compete in the marketplace paying those electric rates. So Governor Brown offers companies a temporary break on electric. First, obviously, it's a temporary break, so they'll be paying the same high rates as everyone else in a few years, and they won't be able to compete, which is why companies have not taken the bait on that. Now, but furthermore, there's a deeper problem here in that when a governor decides to give breaks to some companies and not to others, that amounts to government control and regimentation of the economy. That is not a free market, and that is what we are supposed to have in America. And the governor has also offered temporary tax breaks. Again, similar to the electric argument, that when you're offering tax breaks to companies to locate here, that's an admission that tax rates are too high. And again, it's temporary. Do an across-the-board tax cut. Do a permanent tax cut for all comers, and people will come back. But you have to undo the problems that are causing companies to leave in the first place. I'll include a link to this. See, because I've been arguing with people about this, and they say that electricity was always expensive in California. No, it wasn't. In fact, a lot of the spike here was under the Gray Davis administration. Electricity has not always been expensive in California. We've historically generated most of our electricity through hydroelectric. That is one of the cheapest ways to generate electricity. And then on top of that, our population has increased, but they won't allow us to build more hydroelectric plants. And we also lost a nuclear plant. The Shannon Grove nuclear plant has been decommissioned. That's not supplying any power to the grid anymore. This is people won't admit this. People argue against me about this, but this is a shortage caused by government policy. People say that I'm mixing up politics and energy costs. What causes energy to go up? It's government policy. We have an energy policy. We have an energy department. There is a government policy about energy, and it very much does affect energy prices. And there's nowhere that is more evident than California. It makes industry uncompetitive here. It makes business uncompetitive here. It unnecessarily takes a lot of money out of families' finances because of the expensive rates we pay here. And yet no one's really willing to do anything about it. In fact, this cap and trade stuff is going to make the problem worse. And people need to wake up about this and really recognize that the true cause of the problems in California. They're always misattributed. The wrong people are always blamed. It's the private sector, it's business, it's the free market economy, which really does not exist. We really do not have a free market in America. We definitely don't in California. The government is involved in every little nook and cranny of the economy, and that's the problem. We need to get government out of things. We need to restrict government. That's a cornerstone of the American system, that we are supposed to be free to make choices in life and not have to deal with government involvement in every corner of our lives. And we're growing just far too accepting of government interference in our lives and in the private sector. People need to recognize that government is the problem here. I was looking over the results of the last election, and it discouraged me because the California vote for Obama was roughly a 60-40 split, which is to say about 13 million people voted for Obama and about 10 million people voted against. That's a huge percentage to overcome. And it shows that people just are not doing their homework. We'd have to change the minds of a huge 1.5 million people to even have a chance of the state voting for a Republican again. Now, I was somewhat more encouraged in the last Senate election of Boxer versus Carly Fiorina that only 52% voted for Boxer, but then again, only 42% voted for Fiorina. So it really wasn't close because of some, other party candidates. But there is some deep-seated anger, even among some of the left, as far as Boxer is concerned. And so maybe over time there will be hope here, but it still is discouraging to think that a state that is as big as California, that has as much effect over the whole nation as California does, that it's just such an uphill battle here. And it's embarrassing, actually, how misinformed so many Californians are. And again, that goes back to the Bay Area, where the political machine is rooted so deep in San Francisco. And until someone is able to find a way to chip away at the power that political machine has in this state, it's going to be more difficult yet. And I don't know what the answer is as far as that goes. That's beyond my imagination. It's just something that I recognize that needs to be done in order to really fight for change and for a solid policy in California, so that we can have a healthy economy in California again. The entire way of thinking is so mixed up over this because, I hear people in the state assembly say that we need to we need to partner with the private sector to ensure growth. The private sector does just fine growing on its own. There is a woman from Bakersfield, and I do forget her name off the top of my head, but the she wants to change this state to a part-time legislature. Now, that would be a great idea. She wants to change it to a part-time legislature and reduce their pay because they currently get paid very well, somewhere like $90,000 a year. She wants to reduce their pay so that it doesn't attract people that are just there for the money. And it is true. They go to great lengths to protect that. In fact, a state assemblyman from Los Angeles said there is no way in the world we can run the seventh largest economy in the world on a part-time legislature. That arrogant idea that the legislature runs the economy. Growth does not result from government. Private jobs cause growth. Government does not. All government does is pull money out of people's pockets that are earning it, that are creating, that are producing. And these greedy politicians are always after more money. They see stuff being produced, and man, they're licking their lips like a fox that wants to get into the hen house and get the eggs. That is the underlying motivation of these politicians. People need to never lose sight of that. Too many have, and they'll actually defend these politicians. Politicians are greedy. Politicians are greedy for the money that we make. They're greedy for the wealth that we produce. They're greedy for the power that comes along with taxation. People get involved in arguing all these fine points, and they lose sight of that fundamental fact. Politicians are greedy for our money, and they're greedy for power. They're greedy for control over people's lives. Can't stress that enough. Never lose sight of that. Politicians want power, and they want wealth that they haven't produced.